This meeting of the California Underground Safety Board is now called to order at 9:03 on September 9th, 2025. Ms. Riggle, please read the roll call.
Lawson,
Present.
Johns,
Present.
Johnson,
Present.
Munoz, present, Simonian,
Present.
Sorum.
Present. Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we gathered today on ancestral homelands of the Nisinan people. Sacramento was a gathering place for many local tribes who have lived throughout the Central Valley and the foothills for generations and were the original stewards of this land. We would like to acknowledge the Southern Maidu people as the people to the north and the valley and plains, the Miwok peoples to the south of the American River, and the Putwin Wintun people to the west of the Sacramento River. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude for our indigenous neighbors and for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. There will now be a safety briefing for our in-person attendees.
Good morning, everybody. Just wanted to go over a few safety protocols before we start the meeting. If there is an emergency while we're in the meeting room, please make sure that somebody notifies the front desk that there's an emergency back here and that they should be expecting emergency vehicles up front. If you feel an earthquake, if you feel shaking, protect yourself from falling objects, get to a safe place, seek shelter, go towards an interior wall until the shaking stops. In the event of an evacuation, we evacuate to Roosevelt Park. It's a block up on 9th and P Street. Look for the person holding an OEIS sign and check in with them so we can get accountability for everybody on site. There's also a fire extinguisher and an AED located right here on this wall, if that is needed. And that concludes the safety briefing.
Thank you. Okay, the meeting will proceed in the same manner as previous meetings, which will include public participation in person and remotely. We ask that everyone to please be aware of crosstalk by ceding the floor as necessary to one another in each taking turns to comment. We will now review public participation and public comment procedure. For those of you attending in person and wish to provide public comment, you'll be prompted to approach the podium in front of the auditorium. Please provide your name and organization before you comment. And then for those who are joining us remotely, you can enter the queue to speak by using the raised hand button if you're on the webinar, or dialing *5 if you have dialed in. When your name is called, unmute yourself using the microphone button if you're on the webinar, or by dialing *6 if you've dialed in. Please provide your name and organization before you comment. Okay, so following those instructions, we'll now proceed with public comment on topics within the board's jurisdiction, which are not on the agenda today. If you'd like to make a comment, please approach the podium and please provide your name and organization before you comment. Okay, so seeing no in-person comments, we'll move to webinar hosts. Are there any webinar comments?
There are no public comments.
You said none. Okay. Okay, so seeing no webinar comments, we'll now move on to the presentation portion of this meeting. And Ms. Rizet, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Johns and members of the board. My name is Jessica Rizet, and I'm the board's Chief of Education and Outreach. I will be your MC again today as we continue to share perspectives and to learn about best practices and emerging technology for subsurface installation safety. As Chair Johns mentioned, there will be time for discussion and questions through public comment following each of today's presentations. This morning, we will hear a few presentations before taking a short break. Then we'll resume presentations before taking a longer lunch, networking, and exhibitor table break. When we resume, we'll close the day out with a few more presentations, followed by closing remarks from our board. Before we get started today, I would like to note that the presentations, ideas, and products shared during this event are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent the official policies or positions of the Underground Safety Board or the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety. No endorsement or recommendation of any product, service, or viewpoint is implied. The board and office make no representations or warranties as to the accuracy, completeness, or adequacy of the information provided. This material does not constitute legal advice. Participants should consult their own legal and compliance teams for advice. With that, I would like to welcome Energy Safety Director Caroline Thomas Jacobs to the stage for today's welcoming remarks.
Good morning. Thank you, Jessica. As Jessica mentioned, my name is Caroline Thomas Jacobs, and I'm the Director of Energy Safety. Really appreciate the opportunity to be with you here today. Heard that yesterday was a really productive and educational day, so I'm excited to be able to welcome you guys today. The Underground Safety Board and the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety were born out of tragedy. With lives lost in Fresno and Bakersfield in 2015 and the catastrophic wildfires in California in 2017 and 2018. Out of those crises, we were given a clear mandate as energy safety to protect people, workers, and communities by transforming the way California manages underground and overhead utility infrastructure. Today, our vision is bold yet simple. We strive for California to be a safe and sustainable utility infrastructure where catastrophic excavation incidents and utility ignited wildfires no longer occur. Our mission is to create a safer and more resilient state by reducing excavation incidents and wildfire risks, advancing sustainable practices, and ensuring our infrastructure adapts to a changing climate. This commitment is reflected in the goals we carry forward. Through our strategic plan, energy safety is focused on 5 priorities: driving stronger safety culture and risk management, harnessing data for smarter, more effective oversight, building a modern, equitable workforce, streamlining operational excellence, and strengthening partnerships with tribal communities, local communities, industry, and government. Through the 2025 work plan, the Underground Safety Board is advancing concrete actions to bring these values to life, delivering new educational toolkits, expanding educational course access to excavators and operators so they have the knowledge that they need, standardizing processes like the planning and design ticket, electronic positive response to improve compliance and communication, developing safety standards and clarifying GIS mapping expectations, conducting audits and enforcement to ensure accountability, and expanding outreach from educational outreach meetings to youth programs so that safety becomes a shared culture across generations. At its heart, our work is about collaboration. Policy, education, investigations, outreach are not separate lanes, but interconnected efforts that safeguard Californians and the infrastructure that we rely on. Each investigation uncovers lessons that inform better policy. Each policy creates clarity for safer practices, and each educational effort empowers the workforce and the public to do their part. Your presence here today demonstrates that commitment. By showing up, sharing your expertise, partnering with us, you're helping us shape a future where safety is not reactive, but proactive, embedded in our daily practices and supported by strong policy and strengthened by community. As I look around this room, I'm reminded that this mission cannot be accomplished alone. It requires all of us, including industry regulators, workers, communities, holding one another accountable and working toward a shared vision for a safer California. So I thank you for your dedication and for being part of this journey with us. Together, we can continue to transform the challenges into solutions and risks into resilience and tragedies into lessons that build a stronger California for all. So thank you for being here with us today. I really appreciate the opportunity to welcome you here and look forward to the education and learnings that happen and come out of this meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you, Director. Before we start our first presentation, I'd like to invite the board to join us in the auditorium. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to see the audience from this viewpoint. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you weren't here yesterday, though I've introduced myself this morning already, I am the Chief of Education and Outreach for the board. This morning's presentation will be on the outcomes of the board's coordinated statewide education and outreach workshops. I'll begin with an introduction to the initiative to establish framework for coordinated statewide education and outreach. Next, I'll give an overview of each of the workshops and their findings. Finally, I'll highlight the key takeaways from this presentation, next steps, and the ways that you can get involved with this initiative. Government Code 4216 12.12b1 requires the board to coordinate education and outreach activities that encourage safe excavation practices. While there are laws and regulations for dig safe practices, there's a lack of unified understanding of standards for education and outreach. This has led to a siloed approach in the development, delivery, and measurement of safety training and engagement. Some existing partnerships create more consistent education programs and demonstrate that a coordinated effort throughout the industry could improve information uniformity. The concept of a partnership approach was introduced during the board's September 2023 Education and Outreach Meetings workshop discussion. As a result of that discussion, the board determined a need for coordinated statewide education and outreach. As part of the 2024 work plan, staff conducted interviews with industry stakeholders to gain insight into their education and outreach programs and to analyze evaluation techniques and effectiveness. Those research findings were presented at the 2024 Education and Outreach meeting with a recommendation that the board conduct a series of workshops with stakeholders to identify high priority safety concerns through collaborative discussion. That brings us to this year. The board's Education and Outreach Committee held 4 workshops to facilitate open communication between industry partners and to discuss ways that training and data could be standardized. 3 goals were identified for these workshops. The first was to engage stakeholders and understand training issues from all perspectives in the call before you dig process. The second goal was for stakeholders to collaboratively develop education and outreach training based on the collected information and create an action plan to implement the training. The final goal was for stakeholders to establish the appropriate metrics to evaluate the success of the training. Each workshop built upon the information, progress, and results from the previous sessions. The total attendee count for all 4 workshops was 157, and participants included representatives from regional notification centers, excavators and construction firms, associations, utility owners and operators, locators, and municipalities across California. The workshops were held between January and June. The first 2 workshops were formatted for discovery. In these sessions, the committee asked specific questions and participants were invited to have discussions to answer those questions from their perspectives. The final 2 workshops were formatted as work groups, where the committee guided participants through exercises that resulted in collective insights. The first workshop was held in January and presented for discussion several concerns related to excavation safety, based on the 6 most common causes of underground infrastructure damage at the national level, as reported in the 2023 DIRT report. These common causes included failure to notify 811 before digging, improper excavation practices, issues stemming from inaccurate utility markings due to locator errors, excavators not maintaining proper clearance from utilities, failing to verify marks before digging, and mishandling abandoned lines. With those safety concerns in mind, participants discussed the effectiveness of current training, access to training, coordination of best practices between stakeholders, and areas for improvement in training. The workshop helped provide a better understanding of the underlying safety concerns from the perspective of excavators and operators, and the key takeaways include addressing underground infrastructure damage in California requires a multifaceted approach, focusing on better communication, enhanced training, and targeted outreach. Participants emphasized the need to tailor training efforts for different types of excavators, such as professionals versus landscapers or homeowners, and to help address specific regional challenges. Integrating hands-on learning and focusing on developing partnerships with unions and other trade programs can increase safety training awareness and reach. And the third takeaway was that there's a need to increase educational outreach for smaller contractors using various forms such as in-person training, video-based resources, and integrating into local permit processes. The second workshop was held in February and focused on how stakeholders could collaborate to provide solutions to the training issues that were presented in the first workshop. We asked participants to vote, and they selected failure to notify 811 as the safety concern to focus on for this workshop and the remaining workshops in the series. And they discussed solutions, priorities, resources, and communication strategies that could help address a failure to notify 811. The key takeaways from this session include that stakeholders were looking for content to be created by the board that could be distributed and used for training by operators and excavators. Participants also provided perspectives and ideas on how the board could partner with licensing and permitting agencies. such as the Board of Certified Safety Professionals, to integrate excavation safety practices into their training programs. The benefits of both online and in-person training formats were highlighted, with a suggestion to create materials that allow for hybrid access to maximize reach and engagement. Participants identified challenges, including financial constraints and resource limitations, especially for smaller contractors. Multilingual communication was highlighted as a significant barrier, with the need for training materials to be available in Spanish to ensure widespread understanding and compliance. The third workshop was held in May and provided an opportunity for stakeholders to focus on their experiences, knowledge, and data to deepen the understanding of the reasons people fail to notify 811. Based on the feedback from the two previous workshops, the committee saw an opportunity for this workshop to be a place where the industry could work together to review the data and content currently being used in the field to get a clearer picture of what information is already available, what is working, and where there are gaps. The committee guided participants through a root cause analysis exercise using the 5 whys method to explore the core question, why do people fail to notify 811? Participants were asked to present what data they are collecting and analyzing, what trends they are seeing, and what might be missing from their data. Additionally, they were asked to discuss their current education and outreach content, with a focus on assessing the clarity and effectiveness of engagement timelines, inventory, target audiences, and curriculum. For the root cause analysis exercise, participants provided 8 reasons that they believe people fail to notify 811, and then voted to select 2 of those reasons for the 5 whys analysis. Those were: people believe if they're shallow digging or using hand tools, they aren't required to call 811 or they don't need a ticket. And the second was that not everyone who is excavating is calling in their own 811 tickets. They believe existing marks that someone else called in will cover them. The key takeaways from this session include: there is a lack of awareness for responsibilities related to the DigSafe Act and the 811 process across different excavation industry audiences. While many stakeholders are collecting data, which may include information on who causes damage and when and where they occur, there remains a critical gap in the understanding of why they happen. There is a need for more comprehensive and relevant data collection to support meaningful analysis and targeted prevention efforts. Education and outreach materials do exist and are being distributed in many forms: printed materials, digital content, in-person events, emails, social media, and media outreach. And there are materials available in both English and Spanish. Additional analysis and coordination of both data and materials could help further identify and address the reasons that people fail to notify 811. The final workshop in this series was held in June and focused on having stakeholders discuss messaging and communication strategies that could best connect with people who fail to notify 811 to encourage them to do so. The committee covered additional industry insights using data from the 2023 DIRT report. Then the committee guided participants through exercises to generate core safety message concepts tailored to different audiences that reflects the awareness levels and motivations of those audiences. and to identify the most effective communication approaches and delivery channels for different audiences. Participants were asked to focus on an audience, including small construction companies and small-scale contractors, and discuss what kind of messaging might motivate them to notify 811 before digging. What do they care about? What would get their attention? What kinds of words, warnings, and benefits might resonate with them? And second, what communication methods or outreach approaches would likely be most effective for them? Are they active on certain social media platforms more than others? Do they follow any influencers? Are there industry publications, trade events, or other community resources that they use? Participants concluded that the best way to communicate to small construction companies is to be blunt and direct, mention financial savings if fines and repair costs are avoided, encourage enforcement by reminding them of their responsibility to do things the right way to benefit their communities, and using real-life examples to highlight dangers and calling out their liability risks. They identified these communication methods for effective outreach: licensing and permitting agencies, door tags and magnets, partnerships with suppliers and rental companies, and builders exchanges. Participants concluded that small-scale contractors are motivated to comply with the law to win contracts with large organizations which mandate strict adherence to safety standards. Maintaining a strong reputation and meeting bidding qualifications are also powerful incentives, as well as remaining on preferred vendor lists and ensuring continued access to valuable business opportunities. And they identified these communication methods: long-form informational videos, such as YouTube, case studies and testimonials, email communications, and short-form entertainment videos, such as social media reels. As we wrapped up that session, we asked participants to submit a one-sentence message that would encourage someone to contact 811. The top phrases and proposed slogans included: "Don't dig a grave, call 811. The most expensive free service you never use. Call 811 before you dig. It's free, fast, and could save a life. Call 811 to avoid calling 911. And it's a shared responsibility. Do your part." The takeaways from this workshop include that stakeholders in California are producing education and outreach content, but there is still a gap in reaching individual workers directly. Future outreach should involve broader platforms like city signage and development boards to maintain long-term message presence. Ongoing efforts can include data evaluation and integration of 811 messaging into permitting, licensing, retail, and insurance systems for sustained impact. So at the beginning of this presentation, I went over the goals for the workshops. And as I wrap up, we'll revisit those goals to see what we learned. The first goal was to engage stakeholders and understand training issues from all perspectives in the call before you dig process. Each workshop included participation from a variety of stakeholder groups, and the challenges identified differed from group to group. The committee heard perspectives from large companies, small companies, and associations that represent companies. They also heard from those that work and train in the field and from groups that are focused on education. The second goal was for stakeholders to collaboratively develop education and outreach training based on the collected information and create an action plan to implement the training. But what we learned is that education and outreach training content is widely available, more is in development, and that this content is accessible in many formats and in Spanish. These workshops allowed stakeholders to share their knowledge of these resources and to discuss how to increase awareness of these resources. The final goal was for stakeholders to establish the appropriate metrics to evaluate the success of the training. While metrics were not established as part of these workshops, the first steps were taken toward that by giving stakeholders the opportunity to present their own data and to learn what data other stakeholders are collecting and analyzing. This allowed for a discussion about where gaps exist and what approaches can be taken to collect additional insights. The board will discuss the coordinated statewide education and outreach workshops and next steps at the November board meeting planned for November 17th and 18th. You can attend that meeting in person or online, or watch the replay on our YouTube channel. The recordings for the board's workshops and board's meetings, past and future, can be viewed on the Energy Safety YouTube channel. You can stay involved with the board's education and outreach work by signing up for our emails and following Energy Safety on social media. Thank you again for attending the board's education and outreach meeting. Before we open the floor to public comments, I would like to invite Michael Worster to the podium. He will discuss how he worked to partner with some of his network to enhance the findings for our workshops.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, board. Michael Worster, I'm a member of California Regional Common Ground Alliance. At the beginning of this program, this project to coordinate state education and outreach for this, we decided that since have this long history of partnering with the Underground Safety Board, in fact, CARG is quoted in the law as a source of the best practices here in California, it seemed reasonable that we could use our resources and our folks to create a panel of subject matter experts to work alongside and partner with the state Underground Safety Board to make it a truly coordinated program. So what we did is form a very large panel of experts. We have some excavators, we had call centers, we had various types of utilities from municipal, private owned, Northern California, Central California, Southern California. That included East Bay SMUD here in Sacramento, Long Beach, AT&T, SOCOM, it's an excavation company, Dig Alert, Edison, SoCal Gas, Southwest Gas, City of Palo Alto, the County of Santa Clara, PG&E, and a few others. And throughout the year, some came in, some left, but each one of them left a little bit of impact. Some of them stayed a lot. And what we did is deliberate each one of the workshops afterwards. We'd kind of hold our own. And monthly meetings we had, and during that time, we'd also work offline and deliberate about how to best create a deliverable this year and just experiment on this brand new type of project. Since it's never been done in California, we figured we could help get something out on the streets that's going to be inexpensive, accessible, and relevant to everything that the board had determined in their workshops. So we pretty much mirrored it. We took the identifying the number one cause, right? You guys, the board had to determine that it was not calling 911. We looked about the same reasons who, like the same reasons, the same people that the board identified, we could zero in on SoCal, where's the problems? Palo Alto, where are the problems? And it pretty much was the same. As we talked through it, everything that the board found, we concurred with. Nothing was really super different than the findings as far as the data goes. And what we did was through the year, we decided what simple, low cost, effective means could we do to get the message out, to address or identified the homeowners, the small contractors, the subcontractors that weren't calling. And we decided, after a lot of talking about it, we do mail flyers, we do emails, but people just aren't looking at them, right? We get so many emails, we're on auto pay for their bills. So putting flyers and utility bills is pretty useless, or email on one too, because people aren't looking at them. They're just expecting their bills to be paid. If it shows up in the mail, like, yeah, I already paid my bill, throw it away. So we went low tech. We went back to the old fashioned door hanger. The resources are already there. You got meter readers, repair techs, you have contract locators, in-house locators are going to residences all the time. There's canvassing for sales that you see door to door. A lot of utilities do that. So door hangers seem to make sense. It's something that people, they may get sick of seeing it, but they're going to have to access it. And also, every contractor's got a residence. They live somewhere, right? So we have an opportunity to reach a smaller contractor to remind them, continually remind them of the 811 process. And the great thing is, each territory we decide is going to have multiple utilities. It's not going to just be one time. The door hanger is going to continually go as long as multiple agencies within an area are going to participate. So we get that repeated message. And regarding the messaging, you can probably see up here, some of that looks familiar because we pulled it right off of the our workshops here at the state. So to access them, one of the things we decided to do was create a message that both covered, a homeowner, a utility, I'm not a utility, a contractors, a small contractors, and address all the findings the state board did with what was the motivation. So 811, it's free to use, but costly if you don't. That sounds a little bit familiar. 811 saves lives. Utility lines can be anywhere at any depth. And this is, we're targeting, in that case, a small fencer, a landscaper, a homeowner. Even a small dig can be a big problem. Utility damage carries both a financial cost and impacts everybody's safety. And that's something we cut. That's a line that took us a while because there was cost lives. There's a lot of things. We try to have a very powerful message, but at the same time, we wanted utilities not to have to go through their outreach folks and their public awareness folks to get approval to say something like saves lives. So we kept it in such a way that it wasn't too forcible, but we get the point that it impacts safety rather than saying that you could lose your life. We avoided those things. Although we did say that one that I think is everybody's favorite was use 811 to avoid using 911. We also agreed as a panel that we should have some emblems that just quickly, generically show what types of different diggings, right? So we, not just your professional excavator, like you see the tiny little excavator there, but planting tree, doing some gardening work. All these things require 811. And of course, we have to put Espanol there, but we want to be able to translate this and have it in Spanish. This is just a generic thing. City of Palo Alto is actually actively making a really nice one with a professional graphic designer, because I am not, as you can see. But we wanted to basically just make a template that can be downloaded from different sources, whether they're call centers, whether it's your own utility organization, where utilities, excavators, anybody could just download the file. They can customize it, put their own branding on it, their own contact information, their own messaging toward the bottom, and distribute these. And they can be brought to not just door to door, but be also brought to trade organizations, expos such as this one. See, I think it's Southwest Gas. They had this cool little tree ribbon that they were giving out to nurseries. So when you go get a tree in a nursery, wrapped around the stem was this little tag that was similar to this, but we figured, that the hole for the door itself could also be put on that tree. So that's another idea, is to bring these to nurseries as well as just door to door and just repeating. It can be a hollow one that you put a business card in. We also thought about magnets, put a 811 magnet because people still use magnets on their fridge, right? The whole things. Just really low tech basic stuff. And just to try to get a deliverable this year on this program, we thought was something we could do really simple. You see the QR code there. That would also send you to training resources, the call centers websites. Both call centers have amazing training content on there. So whether you're north or south, if it was going down south, it would send you to Dig Alert. If you're up north, it would send you, the QR would send you to USA North. So we believe that this would be a really impactful program. We're going to try to post this as soon as possible. Our closing meeting is this Friday, to where we'll have a much better version of this. And if they all agree, then we'll start to try to post it online at the call centers as an example, where any utility or anybody else could pull it, download it, print it, use it. And then finally, in October, what we're going to do is we want to summarize our panel similar to this. We have our California Regional Common Ground Alliance Safety Summit mock strike event that you've heard a few times being spoke about here, where we simulate a gas strike, right? We show how things go wrong, a really powerful, unscripted emergency response to that damage. We'll have a live fire. And then we sit down and we take our participants and we run them through 5 training sessions to show you how not to do this. And they mirror the 5 steps of safe excavation. And each training session is being operated by professionals from Common Ground Alliance, SoCal Gas, Edison. Everybody's going to show you how to do it the right way. And then after that, you get free In-N-Out burger. So that's our incentive. It's a free event. I think there's a QR code over here. There's some signage that if you have the opportunity to travel down south, it's in Irvine. It's on October 10th. You can click on the QR. We're still taking sponsors if you'd like to put a booth. So anyhow, what we'll do is we normally had a keynote speaker. We're not going to do that. Instead, we'll assemble members of our panel and close up and summarize what we did for the year, including and show the final product of this in real life. Maybe have a stack of them for people to start to take. And at that point, we just want to start moving along, distributing them. And each year, we could do it again or see how this works, but this is just one of the many ideas that we can do. Just wanted to show, we wanted to find a way to use our resources to get a deliverable this year. And I think it was pretty successful so far. So yeah, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we will open the floor to public comment. If you are here in person, you can approach the podium, and if you are online, you can follow the instructions on the screen. Do we have any online comments?
There are no comments.
Okay. Seeing no comments, we will proceed. Up next is Navigating Underground Safety Board online resources. Brittany.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brittany Friedman, and I am an Education and Outreach Ambassador with the Underground Safety Board. Today, I will be guiding you through the Underground Safety Board's website and providing many resources for anyone involved in excavation activities, underground utility operations, or public safety in California. We will navigate through 5 key categories of our website to better learn how to access essential information, file reports, and stay up to date on the board's work. In particular, we will be focusing on the Underground Safety Board, website navigation for crucial resources, meetings and events, reporting, and how to get more involved with the board. Before we dive in, it is important to note that the Underground Safety Board's main page is located on our energy safety website at energysafety.ca.gov. If we scroll down the energy safety homepage about midway, we will locate the Underground Safety Board logo and description. Clicking on this icon will allow us to reach the hub of the board's resources, which serves as the dashboard. Breaking down the resource navigation of this page will be our focus today. By the end of this presentation, my goal is that you will have a clear picture on how to locate, utilize, and stay up to date on all things related to the California Underground Safety Board. We will begin with the Underground Safety Board, noting who is currently serving on our board, our mission and values, our enforcement philosophy, and other important board reports, plans, and policies. Navigating to the About the Board section will break down the board's structure and authority. We currently have 6 active board members, including Chair Johns and Vice Chair Clausen. You can select any board member's photo to access a brief biography about them. Acknowledging who's on the board and their past work may assist you in understanding who is helping to make decisions that affect your industry. Scrolling down the dashboard page will allow you to view the board's missions, values, and vision statements. The California Underground Safety Board strives to be a model regulatory and investigatory board for other states to emulate. These values represent how the board's work is guided and demonstrates a commitment to board actions and decisions that best uphold the underground safety industry. Just underneath the board's values, we will locate the annual reports and plans section, which provides transparency into the board's activities and future planning. This page includes comprehensive annual results reports, strategic plans, and priorities the board is focusing on. You can review past and current annual work plans and results reports that highlight the board's work and activities for that year. Adjacent to reports and plans is the board's enforcement philosophy. This critical section outlines how the board approaches enforcement and compliance. This philosophy includes information regarding the board's approach to enforcement and willful noncompliance. Reading this section may help you understand how the board approaches enforcement with the overall goal of improving safety outcomes. Navigating to the board's resolutions and policies does take an extra step. Scroll back up the dashboard page and select the Underground Infrastructure Directorate icon. Towards the bottom of this page, you can locate board resolutions and policies. Here, you can access adopted board resolutions and policies that guide operations. Next, we will take a look at the excavation safety resources that are available on our website. These resources live on the Underground Infrastructure Directorate page we just navigated to. I will cover several of the resources located on this webpage later in the presentation, but I'll provide a brief overview on the rest of them now. Near the top of this page, we can find a direct link to the Dig Safe Law, which was signed into effect in 2016 and last updated January 1st, 2025. This government code is what the board regulates and all of you follow to communicate where underground utilities are located to coordinate safe digging. Just below the Dig Safe law lies the rulemaking icon, which will direct you towards information on some technical updates adopted by the board. The resources page holds information including Senate bill updates, area of continual education excavation ticketing, and regional notification center contact information. One resource I want to specifically highlight is the Area of Continual Excavation, or ACE page. This page addresses long-term excavation projects for farmers and some flood control operators. You can utilize these ACE tickets, which are valid for 1 year, as compared to the standard ticket length of 28 days. You can also download the ACE ticket walkthrough guide based on your location in California. The Underground Service Alert serves Northern California, while Dig Alert serves Southern California. The next section covers meetings and events by the Underground Safety Board and staff. Underneath the icons on the dashboard page, we can find the section for news and updates, which will highlight recent activities and successes for the Underground Safety Board. Adjacent to this, in the events and meetings sections, which will display upcoming events and workshops and board meetings, we invite anyone who is interested to attend these meetings, as they provide an opportunity for members of the public to share their input with the board. To find more details about these events and meetings, we utilize a docket log, which houses all of the documents and relevant information pertaining to these events. I'm going to use an example to show you how to navigate the docket log by looking at our most recent board meeting we held in July. This will take us to a general overview of the meeting with basic information. To access more information, click the meeting docket highlighted text. From here, select the docket log text box located in the upper right-hand corner. On this page is where you will find all agenda items, case information, meeting recordings, staff reports, and more. If you are looking for information regarding a particular case or investigation, you will also be utilizing the docket log. In this instance, you will want to select the NOPV, or Notice of Probable Violations tab. From here, we will follow the same steps as before by selecting the docket log text box located in the upper right-hand corner. This docket log will display all of the submitted past and current investigations information. Next up, we are looking at reporting resources for excavators and operators. Specifically, we will be exploring how to report damage and file a complaint. Excavators must report damage to a subsurface utility if they occur. Additionally, excavators can report every time an operator fails to mark on time or does not provide an electronic positive response, or EPR. Or an operator can file a complaint for excavation that occurred without an 811 ticket. One of the most critical and time-sensitive tasks in excavation is reporting underground utility damage should it occur. An excavator causing or discovering damage must file a report within 2 to 48 hours, depending on severity, to the regional notification center in their territory. There is a damage information guide that can be downloaded to assist with this task. To begin reporting the damage to the board, navigate to the damage navigation form. If you know your ticket number, you can enter it. Be sure to fill out your reporting information, a description of the damage, if other parties were involved, and attach any relevant documentation. The board also reviews complaints, which you may submit if you believe you have identified a safety violation or concern. This form does have an anonymous reporting option, if needed, to ensure protection for whistleblowers. Similar to submitting a damage report, you may enter a ticket number if it exists, or you can fill out the violation information, including what you witnessed and what occurred, who is responsible, contacting information, and any relevant documentation. Don't hesitate to use this form if you see unsafe practices. Finally, we're going to explore how you can get more involved with the Underground Safety Board. On the dashboard page, we will see various ways to get involved, include submitting an idea, subscribing to email lists, news, and safety board updates, and contacting the board and staff directly. One way to get involved is to submit an idea. We encourage you to submit your ideas on how best to address a public safety concern that falls within the board's purview. You can complete the submission form online via the dashboard page. To stay up to date on the board's activities, you can join our email list. We have several different email lists to choose from when you sign up, so you can get information you are looking for. You may also contact the board or staff directly via a form on the Contact Us page. Here, you will also find several important emails, as well as our address and phone number. Be sure to follow us and subscribe on social media to view upcoming events, important news, and meeting information. You can also view past meeting and workshop recordings on the Energy Safety YouTube channel. The QR code at the top of this slide will take you directly to the contact page on our website if you would like to add and bookmark this for later use. Thank you for your attention. Please let me know if you have any questions about navigating the Underground Safety Board's website and resources. We will now open the floor to public comments for this item. Are there any public comments online?
There are no public comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. We are running ahead of schedule. We now have a break scheduled. If there are no objections from the board, we can take a short break. Seeing no objections, we will break. Our resume time is 10:55. I encourage everybody to get some coffee and visit our exhibitors.
Okay, this meeting of the California Underground Safety Board is now resuming and called to order at, I'll wait another couple of seconds. It'll be 10:55 on September 9th. And Ms. Rizit, please continue.
Thank you, Chair Johns and members of the board. Our next presentation will be USA North 811's Educational Resources from Colin. Colin is the marketing director at USA North 811, a nonprofit organization serving Northern and Central California and Nevada. For more than 14 years, he has led public outreach and education efforts to promote safe digging practices and strengthen community partnerships. With a background in strategy and communications, Colin focuses on building clear, engaging campaigns that drive awareness and action. Before we get started, can I invite the board to join us in the auditorium?
All right, so as Jessica mentioned, my name is Colin Miotti. I'm with USA North 811. We serve Northern California, Central California, the whole state of Nevada. I'm the marketing and education director there, and I'm going to be talking about our educational resources, not so much our marketing campaigns or anything like that. We're going to really focus on the resources that we provide to the public, our excavators, our utility operators, and the various stakeholders. There we go. All right, so to kick things off, we have the main thing that we do is presentations. And we're going to break this down. There's two different angles or two different directions / buckets for this. Our safe events is safety awareness for excavators. This is where we host them in strategic locations. We have 21 throughout our service territory. We rent out a building, invite anybody that's created a ticket in that area, and then also the contiguous counties in that area. So we try to get as many people as we can and hit all the locations with high ticket volume. In addition to that, so we try to go through strategic locations, but then we also look at damages per 1,000 tickets to see if there's any outliers. Say a smaller county with not a ton of tickets, but they're really high up in damage per 1,000, then we'll make a special trip out there for the following year and plan something. In these safe presentations, we go over the California Government Code 4216, the Title 19 regulations, CGA best practices, and then the 5 steps to a safe excavation. In addition to that, we also go over how to create a ticket in our system and kind of the basics of how to manage a ticket, make sure you're calling in remarks, stuff like that. There we go. A little bit of lag. All right, so the second part of our presentations, the next bucket is direct presentations. So same content that we do in our safes, but for these are on request through our for stakeholders or association groups, whatever it may be. Therefore, let's for example, the City of Sacramento can't make it to our safe or they missed it, then we could come to you and do the exact same presentation and it's still free of charge. All right. So the next thing that we also offer is an online education course called 811 Pro. This is really good for crews that can't make it to our safe events, or maybe a smaller company that doesn't have the time to have us come out, but they can do an online course that's self-paced, which is really helpful in the construction world when everybody's busy. So it goes over the same information, 4216, Title 19, CGA best practices, the 5 steps to a safe excavation. Next, for what we offer, so we do a community engagement. So if a various stakeholder asks us, hey, we have a safety fair for the city of Dublin. We just did one of those last month. We'll go out there, provide a table, do public engagement, and then also give out swag. In this picture, that's a little hard to see. We have a tabletop sandbox with a remote control excavator. And then this gives a good time for parents love to come up, kids are engaged, and then we're able to talk with the parents about 811 and homeowners, whoever it may be at the various safety fairs. All right, so moving on to some of the printed collateral that we have. We have 811 Safe Digging Partner decals. Those come in various sizes from 9-inch, 6-inch to 2.5. Great for hard hats, but then also larger sizes for trucks, vehicles, equipment, anything like that. APWA color code card also comes in a magnet. So we give those out to construction crews and the public as well. Our excavation handbook that has the California government code in it, as well as the Title 19 regulations, and then the CGA best practices. So that's more geared towards the professional side of the world. We also have pamphlets for DIYers that give them the basics, and that way they can leave with something if we're, tabling at an event and they're doing a project that weekend or the following weekend, they leave with something that's not as dense as the government code, because it's a little tough if you're not living and breathing it like a lot of us are. All right, one other thing that we're excited about, and I know some of you have heard me talk about this for a bit, but it's our field guide. So this is a condensed version of the excavator manual for professional contractors, as well as anybody that digs, but more so for the professionals. It's a quick reference version of the manual. It has all the information that the government code has, but we did strip out some of the stuff for just to keep it concise, like the need to know, kind of like when you get a package and there's some instructions, there's a quick guide, quick start. We wanted that. In this, you're not going to see some of the government code that talks about, like, say, how this board operates, because they don't need to know that. We just want to get them out there and be able to safely dig. Other resources that we have are digital and media resources. We rely heavily on our YouTube page for educational videos. That way people could come in, learn a specific topic rather than going through a whole course. We have a ton of content on here, from how to pre-mark, stories from the field. We really like it. Puts the camera in various stakeholder groups. That one was an investigator type role, but we also have one for a locator and then a regulator as well. And before I get to that, in addition to that, we're also on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, the various social media platforms. Another resource that some of you may have seen in some of these meetings are our statistics. We put our KPIs and our center stats on our website every month, just to show, the excavators, what's going on, or locators, anything like that. Historical data, ticket volume, online tickets, speed of answer. We want to be as transparent as possible and show everybody that this is what's going on. We're not hiding anything. And that is it for our educational resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. We will open the floor to questions at this time. If you're here in person, you can approach the podium. And if you're on the webinar, you can follow the instructions on the screen. Are there any online questions?
I see no raised hands.
Thank you. Seeing no comments, we will proceed. Our next presentation will be Staying Compliant and Safe, SB 778 Information Bulletin. I would like to make a quick note on a schedule change. As we are running ahead of schedule, we'll be moving Esri's presentation before lunch. So we'll have this presentation, Staying Compliant and Safe, SB 778 Information Bulletin, followed by Esri's presentation, Unlocking Underground Insights, GIS Tools and Techniques for Utility Safety, and then we will break for a 90-minute lunch.
Good morning. My name is Alexandra Auger, and I'm an Education and Outreach Ambassador with the California Underground Safety Board. My favorite experience in this role is meeting people from different parts of the state and hearing how important excavation safety is to them and what they do every day to make sure their team is safe. That's why I'm excited to talk about a resource that can be used to stay safe and compliant. The board released the SB 778 Informational Bulletin in December 2024 to alert stakeholders of upcoming changes to the DigSafe Act. These changes to the law went into effect January 1st, 2025. Today, I'll start with a brief introduction to the Information Bulletin. Then, I'll walk through some of the changes outlined in the document. Finally, I'll summarize the main takeaways and show you how to access the bulletin so you can review it in more detail and share it with your team. Let's get started. Before I introduce the Information Bulletin, I'd like to start by briefly talking about Senate bills. What is a Senate bill? In California, a Senate bill is a piece of proposed legislation introduced by a state senator to change, repeal, or add to the state's existing laws. Why should you care what a Senate bill is? Good question. A Senate bill may update the law that applies to your job. This particular Senate bill, SB 778, was introduced in 2023 by Senator Ochoa Bogue, and the board's Information Bulletin was released to make you aware of the updates to the law that directly affect you and your day-to-day work. The changes to the law went into effect January 1st, 2025. For the past 9 months, these changes have been in effect, meaning they changed your obligations under the law. If your current procedures don't reflect these changes, they may be outdated. Understanding these updates is essential to maintaining a compliance and ensuring a safe work environment. You can access the SB 778 Information Bulletin using this QR code. In addition to more details about the amendments to the DigSafe Act, this online version of the bulletin provides links to other useful resources, including the DigSafe Act and the board's regulations. We have printed versions of the table by the door for you, but this version online is especially helpful because it links directly to the DigSafe Act sections it is referring to. Please take a moment to use this QR code to read our SB 778 Information Bulletin. You can scan it here. I will have that available for you in other slides as well. As a note, this presentation is meant to introduce the bulletin and what it highlights. It is not an in-depth analysis. The goal today is to inspire you to share this resource with your teams and staff and to review with your own legal teams. In short, this bulletin is a tool you can use to review the changes to the DigSafe Act. This presentation is meant to be informative and not meant to be legal advice. Please consult with your legal team if you have any questions. We'll be taking a look at the bulletin and how it highlights some changes and clarifications that directly impact all of you here. That includes excavators, operators, and the excavation industry as a whole. But first, I want to mention that the bulletin highlights I'm discussing today are focused on changes that broadly impact the industry. There are a number of changes that aren't mentioned, but the resources I provide for you will cover these further. There are some definition changes, removed language, and more. The bulletin includes changes for excavators to keep in mind that center around creating an 811 ticket, what must happen before they start excavation, and what they must do when encountering or causing damage. Here is a change in excavator responsibilities when creating an 811 ticket. In subdivision I of 4216.2, it says, if a ticket expires, excavation work must immediately stop, and the excavator must contact the Regional Notification Center to get a new ticket. Before the excavator can continue, operators must again fulfill their obligations and respond to the new ticket. A new ticket after expiration of an old ticket has the same conditions as any other new ticket. As a reminder, the operator's obligations include locating and field marking their subsurface installations, providing a map, or notifying that there is no subsurface installation within the excavation area, and providing EPR to the ticket. To note the highlighted change, subdivision I no longer includes a waiting period of 2 days after making a new ticket to start work, but the same conditions as a new ticket apply. They cannot excavate until all operators have fulfilled their obligations. This shows 2 changes in excavator responsibilities prior to starting excavation. The first is that excavators may not begin work until all listed operators have fulfilled their obligations listed in 4216.3A1A. The excavator must still observe any on-site meeting requirement that applies. The second update includes language that is new to the law in subsection G2 of section 4216.2 that reads, the excavator may begin excavation before the legal excavation start date and time if all the conditions in paragraph 1 have been satisfied. This allows excavators the ability to start work earlier than the legal start date and time, as long as all operators have fulfilled their obligations. As a reminder, those obligations include submitting EPR, locating and field marking, and having any required on-site meetings. The bulletin also looks at changes for operators to keep in mind that center around responding to an 811 ticket, assisting an excavator with marked facility issues, and when encountering or causing damage while acting as an excavator. The bulletin highlights 3 changes in operator responsibilities when responding to an 811 ticket. The first change is that operators are no longer just responding to a ticket. Subsection 4216.2b has been clarified that operators must fulfill the legal duties listed in 4216.3A1A. An operator has until the legal excavation start date and time to fulfill their obligations of locating and field marking their subsurface installations, providing a map, or notifying that there is no subsurface installation within the excavation area and providing EPR. The second change is regarding a continual excavation ticket. An operator shall provide a response to the excavator has now been changed to an operator shall fulfill its obligations pursuant to subdivision A of section 4216.3. This language is meant to clarify that the operator must follow the protocol listed in section 4216.3. As a reminder, those obligations include locating and field marking their subsurface installations, providing a map, or notifying that there is no subsurface installation within the excavation area, and submitting an EPR. The third is that the law, subsection A2A of section 4216.4, still requires an excavator to show their intent to use vacuum excavation on the ticket. But now, if an operator disagrees with the use of the vacuum, they must say so through an EPR to the ticket. DigAlert and USA North can provide more information on how to submit this response as an EPR on the ticket. The bulletin covers one change in operator responsibilities when assisting an excavator with marked facility issues. If an excavator cannot expose a marked facility, the operator must provide additional information within 1 working day of the request. This gives a clear deadline to the operator as to when they are required to provide the information to an excavator. Now, let's look at 2 changes excavator and operator responsibilities. Sorry, 2 changes in excavator and operator responsibilities when encountering or causing damage, including emergencies. This can be noted for both excavators and operators because sometimes an excavator is also the operator of a subsurface installation. In subsection C1 of 4216.4 and subsection C3 of 4216.4, the following changes are noted. The first is an excavator still must call 911 right away if they discover or cause damage to a gas or hazardous liquid pipeline and flammable, toxic, or corrosive gas or liquid escapes, or if it is a high priority facility. The excavator does not need to call 911 if all of the following conditions are satisfied. 1, the excavator is the operator of the high priority subsurface installation. 2, the damage was discovered by the operator during operations and maintenance activities. And 3, the damage does not meet the circumstances in subparagraph A. It's not a gas or hazardous liquid pipeline subsurface installation in which the damage results in the escape of any flammable, toxic, or corrosive gas or liquid. The second is that 811 centers must be notified within 48 hours of any damage, unless exempted. An excavator must call 911 before calling the operator if the damage resulted in escape of flammable, toxic, or corrosive gas or liquid, or the damage is to a high priority line. After calling 911, the excavator must notify the operator immediately. Now that we've covered what the informational bulletin says about changes to the DigSafe Act for excavators and operators, let's see what the bulletin says about changes that affect everyone. The changes for all stakeholders to keep in mind include revised definitions, removal of outdated language, changes to the 811 call center reporting obligations, modifications to the board's composition, and changes to the types of information used to develop safe excavation standards. Here are some revised definitions in subsection E1 and 2 of 4216.7 and subsection E and B of 42.16. The new definition for the approximate location is 24 inches on either side of the subsurface installation. Depth is not included. Any field marks that are not within 24 inches of either side of the subsurface installation are considered inaccurate. The new definition for electronic positive response is now tied to operator obligations under section 4216.3. Operators are now statutorily required to respond to a ticket with an EPR. Finally, the word legal was added to excavation start date and time so that a working day is now clarified as Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., excluding holidays. Next is the removal of obsolete references to deadlines. The first, in subsection D of 4216.3, is the removal of a section with outdated language telling the board to adopt emergency regulations before January 1st, 2021 for the implementation of mandatory EPR. The second, in subsection A2C of 4216.3, is removal of language about dates for power tool use and telling the board to adopt those regulations. There were also changes to 811 call center reporting obligations. As mentioned in subsection G of 4216.6, 811 call centers no longer need to submit annual reports using Carga virtual private dirt data, and this section has been removed. There are revised requirements for certain board seats. In subsection B2 of 4216.13, now 3 member seats on the board are allowed for specific types of contract excavators to be filled by someone with knowledge and experience in those specific fields. Subsection D of 4216.3 now says that the seat for a member with locating and marking knowledge can now be filled by someone under the direct employment of an operator. The final change from the bulletin highlighted here is for the types of information used to develop safe excavation standards. This change removes the reference to 811 call center reports that are no longer required and removes restrictions on data that the board may use to develop standards. The changes and clarifications that took effect with SB 778 reflect a commitment to enhancing safety and efficiency in the excavation industry. I'll leave you with these 3 takeaways. First, SB 778 amendments to the DigSafe Act are already effective. If you work in the industry and you have not reviewed these changes, you may not be in compliance with the law. Second, the changes that took place impact everyone in the excavation industry. Finally, today represents highlights of changes and clarifications mentioned in the information bulletin, but is not an exhaustive list of everything included in SB 778. As I mentioned earlier, the board created this resource to alert you that the law was changing, so you can take action to make sure your team's procedures are compliant. Please review the SB 778 information bulletin with your staff and legal team. Once again, here is the SB 778 information bulletin. We have a QR code here for you. In addition to more details about the amendments to the DigSafe Act, the bulletin also provides links to other useful resources, including the DigSafe Act and the board's regulations. This presentation is meant to be informative and is not meant to be legal advice. Please consult with your legal team about any questions you may have. Thank you again for attending the board's meeting, education and outreach meeting. We will now open the floor to public comments.
Thank you, Alexandra. If you're attending in person, you can approach the podium. And if you're on our webinar, you can follow the instructions on the screen to enter the comment queue. Are there any online questions?
There are no comments.
Thank you. Seeing no comments, we will proceed. As mentioned, we have changed the schedule and we will now be introducing Unlocking Underground Insights, GIS Tools and Techniques for Utility Safety from Matt Piper. Matt is the Global Director for Industry Solutions at Esri and leads the Infrastructure and Digital Teams sector. Matt is a professional engineer who has 20 years working in the utilities industry. He is known for being a respected subject matter expert in asset management, GIS, and business intelligence, and digital twins, and as an industry thought leader on how the value of GIS can be applied across an organization.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the time to speak today, and thanks for being agile on the change of agenda as well. As mentioned, my name is Matt Piper. I'm the Global Director for Esri's industry team. I lead up our electric, gas, telco, water, AEC, and digital twin sectors. Probably more pertinent to today's presentation, though, is probably some of my background. So I came from a power company in Australia, worked there for 20 years, and most of my time there through my early engineering days was as a protection engineer. So I was a senior protection engineer and I did a lot of work working to develop a lot of our safety procedures and also pushing forward all the protection as we move to a more modern grid and facing the challenge that we have. Also for this presentation, I've got some global examples about this problem we're facing of the new infrastructure build-outs that's happening around the world and some of the best practices we're seeing from a lot of other people. So I'll be talking through some examples, hopefully get you thinking, okay, I didn't think we could possibly do that. That's not a bad idea. There might be some good takeaways. Sorry. I saw this happen yesterday. Pressed it once and it went 5. For those that don't know, GIS is Geospatial Information Systems. Just think of this as a way that everything you do, we put it on a map. Whether you're planning, designing, going out to do your construction, it is that visual component of bringing your data to life. Think about it in everything you do in today's society, whether it's ordering an Uber, looking at real estate, you naturally put and think spatial first. Everything begins these days with a map. Within organizations, that same approach is becoming core of how they run their foundations across all their lines of business. So the procedure from when you initially want to go out and do surveying or permitting, all the way through to once it's built and then operate, maintain, is all spatial. It's also moving well beyond just the GIS team in organizations. So we're finding now that it is right across the entire organization. So the GIS has moved from just points and lines on a map, really to be something that's pervasive across the entire organization, but not just your organization. It's connecting communities, it's connecting organizations, and also connecting those workflows of how you communicate with your public, but also the consultants and developers that need to engage with your data and other people's data as well. As far as utilities around the world, I've now been with Esri 7 years, and in that time I've seen significant growth, but we now have over 15,000 utilities globally. So if you are working with a utility or an AEC firm in this space, then really the more than likely they are using our technology. So all the large utilities, we have 100% of large utilities in the United States using Esri, and about 70% globally using our technology. So if you are working with an organization, more than likely they are using Esri's technology as their mapping solution. Right, so something that we found, one of the biggest adoptions of GIS is really that the challenges that organizations are facing. So as I said, I worked for 20 years at a power company. We had a pretty funny saying that we used to say that utilities like to go where everyone else has already been before. They see a problem in the market and they will go out and say, we've got to do that. That's an urgent thing we need to solve. It'll take them 6 months to a year to get the business case approved, and then another 2 years minimum to actually implement the solution. So at best, utilities are moving at the pace of solving 3-year-old problems today. That is something that we're starting to see a big shift on how you manage data, information sets, but also start solving some of these challenges that they're facing, because the way that you've always operated grid and the procedures and processes need to move a lot faster than what they are today. Another driving factor here, if you're familiar with it, being an engineer, I work with the American Society of Civil Engineers. Not a good scorecard if you went to college and got a D+, but the energy sector at the moment is sitting with a D+. It is trending upwards though, so it is good news. A lot of that has come from the big investments we've seen since the IIJA, that the energy sector is old. A lot of it is 30 to 50 years old. The current replacement rate on a lot of this work that we see across the industry, it really needs to happen about 5 times the rate of what we're currently building out new transmission, as an example, on our infrastructure. So the investment needs to be made. It's very old. And the other thing that we're seeing, obviously, is huge amounts of impacts due to natural disasters. So 2024 was about $320 billion. It was up 30% from 2023. The $161 billion was at the end of June this year. So this year already, we're on track to surpass last year's costs of how we respond to natural disasters. So that's a pretty bad combination to say we have a very old, aging infrastructure, but it's also getting hit by more natural disasters and events than ever before. So improving that resiliency and replacing what's old is a big problem. The other thing that we're seeing is this is not just a US thing. This investment in new infrastructure Everywhere I go around the world, it's the same story. Huge, big investments, and we're talking billions or trillions of dollars that need to be spent across every single organization globally. So this conversation is really relevant and significant. You looked at the numbers there, $5.3 trillion outside of the US, 3.7 trillion in the US, if we're going to hit these targets that we're aiming for on building out this new infrastructure. But probably what's more concerning is that still leaves in the US about a $3.5 trillion gap in what actually needs to get spent to do this. So there's huge investments coming in the infrastructure. For this conversation though, what's really concerning is that we've got targets we're trying to put in the US to get stuff underground. And so if you're working in this space at the moment, you think everywhere I seem to dig a hole, I hit a pipe or a cable or something. Well, that's only about 20% of the infrastructure is currently underground. Everything else you can see. But the push is by 2040 to get 50%. So the way that you capture, the way that you manage, the way that you engage and work with data is going to become more and more important, because now you're going to have a lot more of this stuff underground. So everything that you do from now on, any new constructions should be captured and bringing that data into core management systems. If you look at some of the dollars here that need to get spent, in California alone, you're talking $204 billion in transmission, roughly 25,000 miles of line. And in the distribution, we're talking another $560 billion. So that's just to get to that 50% target based upon the number of miles that need to be put underground. There's a lot of work to do it, but it's going to take a lot of cost. But the worst thing we can do is not improve the way that we capture this data moving forward. So we talk about mapping. If you walk outside, there's some, for those in the room, there's some great examples here about how you capture this data and you put it onto a map. Mapping has become core for asset management. Knowing where your assets are, knowing what condition they're in, knowing where we're vulnerable to have outages or faults on the network. It's how you respond, it's how you get your crews there. Everything that happens when it comes to asset management or managing asset data has a where component. It's critical in how you manage all of these data sets. This is an example of a customer in New Zealand. It's called PowerCo. Now, PowerCo is a long-time user of Esri's technology, but you'd think it's only a small island, New Zealand. It can't be that complicated. It's very complicated. It's very hilly. It's hard to access. They have over 220 different pole types on their network, but they're going through the same process of undergrounding to improve resiliency. They get things called cyclones. It's the hurricane that spins the other way down south. But they're really optimizing and digitizing their entire network and understanding where it's vulnerable, how they improve their reliability, and improving that resiliency. And they're also then overlaying that with their capital improvement program. So all the work that needs to happen, whether it's doing maintenance or new infrastructure build out, is being analyzed and optimized. So they only have to go out there and do it once. They're not effectively going out to dig up something and then go back the next day and do maintenance on it or do a different type of work. They're really starting to coordinate and plan and optimize all their operational and capital programs of work. What's happened in the last couple of years? Why is the big push now to get everything into your GIS and manage this? There's been a new technology called the utility network data model that was released. I won't get into the details of it, but fundamentally now it's not just a line on a map. Your GIS is actually understanding what type of model it is. So it knows it's a water network, it knows it's an electric network or a transmission, and it knows how it's intended to operate. Why is this important? Well, now you have the same data being used in your control room as what you see in your GIS team, as what you see in your protection team. That same data is now available across all the organization. It's also the same data that you get now when you walk out in the field and you're looking at a map. You're not taking out a paper-based map that is maybe 3 months or 6 months old. You can take out now to the field the real-time data of what you see in the control room. So this data can be shared and accessed, it can be edited, it can be updated and brought back in real time. That greatly improves your safety and the way that you manage workflows within your organization. This is an example about how this is coming to life. So you may have been used to going out with a 2D map. This is where GIS technology is now coming together. Full 3D integrated. You can see the connectivity of all your networks. It integrates in with your control room. You can take this out, you can edit it, you can update it. It connects into your workflows. So that example before that we were talking through where you can go out and start doing safety data captures out in the field, immediately that's capturing your coordinates. It's bringing that data back into your source systems. You can see it on the dashboard. everything is connected, starting with that map as that core front end. So this is an entire 3D maintenance preventative system that's being managed in Thailand. We talk about new construction. This is what it looks like in the US at the moment. So the transmission and planning and analysis. I presented this to Congress in December last year. And we're talking about the amount of new infrastructure that's required that comes into the transmission and planning analysis. So the D+ was current infrastructure. We have as much new infrastructure to get built between now and 2040 as what exists today. So all this new build out of transmission line projects, data centers, solar and wind farms, this is all the new stuff that needs to get connected to an already aging grid, which is just going to amplify the problems that we're facing on the constraints of our network. So how do we move this forward faster? How do we connect all these data sets together? And how do we bring it all into the maps? As I talked about, the current build out of transmission needs to happen at 5 times the rate that we're building it out today. So it's a lot of new construction. An example about how all this might feel within your organization. Everyone's been to Universal World. This is a presentation that came to our conference in 2023. What you're looking at here is the Universal World, and this is all the electric networks, water networks, sewer networks, water treatment plants, telecommunications, the stormwater. On a 2D map, when we start looking at this, it gets very complicated very fast. If you're going to go out there and look to dig a trench or run a project, this is like a little city, right? I mean, you don't think of it when you go there, you just see the theme park rides and everything else. There's a lot of power, a lot of water, and a lot of things in very small areas, very compact networks. Even when you zoom in and you start turning on layers at a time, you start to see, okay, I can understand these, but it is still very complicated. They took all this data and they ran all their projects now through the spatial maps. So you can see that at this point in time, they had 73 projects, 19 were in construction, but they were always running. A new ride's coming in, or a new development, or a new Harry Potter world. There's always something happening at Universal, something is always under construction. But how do you manage all that and know where that infrastructure is? When it's done in 2D, it was looking very messy. This new data model that I was talking about before is the first time our customers have had access to actually take all these networks in true 3D. So this is now what it looks like today. So instead of looking at that map where everything was overlaid and quite messy, you're now seeing everything laid out, spatially accurate and captured and visualized. And it becomes all of a sudden a lot cleaner for everybody to understand this data in 3D context. So it's just an example there about how the 3D networks are coming together if you're going out to do work and visualization. So these sort of tools and visualizations, as I said, are available not just at the desktop and heavy here, but you can take them out and see the exact data on your phone or an iPad as you go out. So that was a small example of a Universal World. This is in Rotterdam. This is the entire city that's been mapped now. So that was a small area. Now we think about it at a city scale. What does this look like? The entire Rotterdam has been mapped, everything underground, all the district energy, so the heating and cooling systems, the power networks. That little snippet there, the yellow, what they're also doing is all the soil analysis of the entire city. So that's all the different types of soil and the sediment. So they're understanding now failure rates on pipes and stuff like that based upon what type of soil it's buried in and the depth. So obviously, if you're doing new constructions, you want to know, am I digging into granite or am I digging into something nice and soft? But also, if I'm putting pipe into that type of soil, does it change the maintenance plans we need to run on it because it could rust or corrode at a faster rate? Okay, this is Australia. I created this app just before I came to America in 2017. The app was called Look Up and Live. Now, as we zoom in here, you can start seeing all the red lines, which are your transmission, the sub-transmission lines come in. The distribution lines will be popping up in blue in a second as it keeps zooming in. And eventually you'll see some dotted lines that become clearer, and then the pink lines. What we just saw is a data set showing your transmission network of the entire power company from generation, transmission, all the way down to a premise to see the dotted underground network of that particular area. Now, why is this unique or interesting? This is all public. So every pole, every single thing that you're looking here is available and public. And right back at the beginning of this video, It wasn't just one power company. It's now the entire east coast of Australia. Their entire electric network's public. And this is something that is now connected into all of your workflows. So if you wanted to see this, it's in the App Store. You can download it. It's called lookupandlive.com.au is the website. You can Google it right now on your computer and have a play. As you work through this, it's connected into all of the workflows. So this is your version of the 811. It's dial before you dig. You can see there as I've clicked on that network, it's a 415 volt underground cable. And there's a link that says straight away there, go out to the latest procedures from that power company. And depending upon where you are in that particular area, it'll point you to the right processes of what you need to do next. This is available to all developers, anyone that's coming in to do work and procedures. It was originally built for overhead construction. Now, you think overhead constructions, you know what's going on overhead, you can see it. This particular power company was having significant accidents due to things like backpackers putting irrigation pipes up into power lines and causing a lot of issues, or it was crop dusters going through and spraying farms and accidentally hitting contact of the network. So all the overhead lines became a problem that there was a lot of safety instances. After rolling this out public, they had a 50% reduction of accidental contacts with overhead lines. So now it's converted not just overhead, it's also the underground network as well. And everything is public and available to everybody to see. Another example, I was in London in February doing a digital twin event, and there's a lot of work happening about the NUA, the Network Underground Asset Register. So in the UK, very similar concept. People are coming together and sharing all of their data publicly and putting it up on these hosted sites to say, you have access to all the underground asset register in the UK. So you'll notice that it doesn't currently, it's in trial. It doesn't replace their existing processes. It's designed as a complementary tool to give you access to data. What we have found by putting data publicly, it can be a little bit nervous, but the reality is that the AI tools at the moment can pretty much capture your entire transmission network just using satellite imagery and know where all your infrastructure is. So it became a conversation that we mitigate risk by giving them accurate information as opposed to out-of-date information, because people were making decisions on out-of-date information. So the same concept is happening in the UK as they roll through this Network Underground Asset Register project. Okay, it's doing the clicking thing again. Just want to touch on why is this important? Why does all this get data capture and how does it tie into maybe a project that you're familiar working with? This is in Lisbon. It's a beautiful place. Lisbon was pretty prone to flooding, or it is prone to flooding, and the more natural events that were happening, it became a big problem. You can see up the top right there, the project as it's under construction. But to mitigate the flooding that's happening in Lisbon, they had to build a tunnel to take the water from the middle of the city to the ocean. So it's about 5 miles that they had to build it out through. And the pipeline that was running was pretty much the size of a subway for a train to roll through. It's about 5 meters across. This is all the 3D design that was done to build the culvert of this project. But you can see the level of detail that's required to build something like this from the middle of a city to take it to the ocean. It's not like there was no infrastructure there. All the infrastructure existed. So they had to build this tunnel and know everywhere that they were digging, everywhere where they were rolling through, am I going to hit anything, gas pipelines, water pipelines, electric pipelines, etc. This exercise of capturing all this, additional infrastructure before the shovels hit the ground was fundamental to the success of this project. So you can see how close a lot of this infrastructure was and where this pipeline went through without having any impact. So the end result was this project is complete. They've now taken that pipeline all the way to the ocean, and some of the more dense areas were like 25 centimeters. What's that? 10 inches of proximity between each of these pipelines. Of how we can use the technology is this is in Dakota. And one of the biggest challenges we're finding is we need to build all these new transmission lines, we need to build all this infrastructure, but the permitting process is taking a very long time. Getting access to where you can build this new infrastructure is a challenge. So there's a lot of work to utilize the existing things like right-of-ways from the Department of Transport. So They're doing analysis here to say, I understand where the transmission right-of-ways are, the transportation right-of-ways are, so where the highways and motorways are running. And they're doing optimization to say, well, if I'm going to put transmission lines to connect through there and use existing right-of-ways that we already own, where's the best way to run this? And it's taking all those things into consideration, whether it's wetlands, granite type of soil, and it's optimizing the routing that needs to go there. So the GIS is doing all the optimization, the visualization, but also connecting then the job estimate process. From here, it then obviously starts thinking about, well, we understand that this is the most optimized route. It's the lowest cost. This is where we're going to build it. And it then would go into the 3D analysis of the transmission planning to help you better understand where we're going to build these transmission routes. I think you can see there the green line is obviously the most optimal route that you're going to be taking. And from there, it'll optimize the route, the actual design process. What you're looking at is it's not always the straight line that is the cheapest. It's actually optimizing the route based upon what type of soil type it is, where do we have access, and coming back with the proposal. Here you can see all the access points, and this will be an underground transmission line. So if you're looking here, the design specs coming through, where it's going to be dug out, how it's going to be laid. Understanding exactly where this transmission line will get run is critical based upon that. You need to know that it impacts your capacity planning of your transmission network, but also if there's ever an outage or a fault, you want to be able to accurately go and find that. But this is now you're looking at the 3D design coming through in spatial context of the entire network. And it also will do things like your right-of-way exclusion zones or buffers to make sure that you have the right amount of clearances. Okay, moving along, disaster management. This is in Stuttgart in Germany, in Austria, sorry. So what we're looking at now is a very complicated, dense network of a tram system with power, with water, everything coming together. You can see all the infrastructure that's above the ground, but a lot of the infrastructure that exists in these old areas of Europe is underground as well. So before we go out and do any work, we can spatially represent everything that exists above the ground, but you can see we start dropping it underground as well to see all the access points, the water networks and everything else. So anything that is happening now in these cities is all being mapped and visualized and creating these capabilities to customers. So the other thing that we're doing is green infrastructure planning. So what is actually causing a lot of the outages or problems in some of these cities? Well, the red is all the hot stuff. And they're going, well, to mitigate heat, we build too many buildings, it's all concrete, no one wants to live here. We've got to make it look nice. So we've got to build we'll put trees in. That's going to help with the green infrastructure planning. That comes with the reality, well, trees have roots and roots grow at a rate. When are they going to become a problem? So all the underground infrastructure starts getting impacted by the root systems of some of these trees. So there's a lot of analysis now on different growth rates based upon the types of trees. And at what point are we forecasting that this tree will become a problem and we'll need to pull the tree out and replace it with something maybe smaller because the root systems are going to start impacting our underground infrastructure. These are all just different scenarios, but what we're seeing now is we start looking at some larger scale urban planning and green infrastructure projects. This is another example of flooding that's coming into that same train station. They did a very similar thing to Lisbon that you saw earlier. This was the flood, it was pretty close, but if the water would have got any higher than 300 meters per second, it would have actually flooded that train station, which was going to be about a $7 billion cost to the country. The final thing we want to talk about was the subsurface. How do we do this? Amadea was going to come down and present, but she's caught up in a meeting upstairs. But if you talk to some of the people outside here as well, the subsurface mapping about how we capture this, there's a lot of different technologies that are being applied to do this, but the key takeaways that we're finding is the accuracy now is very, very good about how you can capture this data, whether it's above or below the ground. Imagery and the way that this is captured is now really starting to drive a lot of the workflows on how accurate your data sets can be when we're doing this work. I'm not going to go through all the different types of subsurface mapping, but there is a lot of different types of technologies now that are available to help capture these assets. Capturing it is one part. We then need to get it back into the map. And a lot of this now just directly connects into our technologies to say, as you're doing this, it's actually picking it up in real time and it's coming straight back into your source systems for data capture and analysis. That's some technical stuff. I'm above my pay grade from Ahmadiyya. But this was an example. This was actually of our New York Street, which is at our head office in Redlands, California. It's just an example. We had overhead LiDAR scans come through, and then also we had the underground mapping systems come through that started capturing all the infrastructure. What I found very interesting on this is what I hadn't appreciated is it's not just capturing the stuff that we know is energized. So here is the active electric networks, or here is the active water networks, but it was all the assets that have been decommissioned. And we're a fairly new campus, but the amount of times that we've actually had to cut pipelines and reroute them, and they don't dig up and throw away the old stuff. So it's the abandoned assets and the stuff that's sitting there still, that if you didn't know about it, would come at a cost to your project. As soon as you hit it, you're going to have to figure out, what have I just hit, and go through that process. But this is actually picking up all the abandoned assets that exist underground as well, and coming back into your GIS system. So even within our own campus, we had a lot of good conversations about the value of understanding what is under the ground. And it's not just always the active stuff, it's everything else that maybe is abandoned as well. And I've got to my time there, Jessica. So hopefully there's some questions, but if not, we'll be around for further questions as well. But thank you very much for your time. I hope that was valuable.
We're going to bring you a microphone.
I had a question on the real-time planning, the transmission line planning map that you showed. Is that something that Esri provides to access through an API or something that somebody could pull in? If you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the planning itself is just core capabilities. It's just routing optimization. It's a tool set within the technology. So what you need to do as you're part of that is effectively you probably apply some weightings. So what's the most weighting? So you're going through wetlands, environmental zones, you're going through different types of soil, and it comes out with, this is the optimized way of doing this. So it's out of the box, it's within the tool set. You can hit our APIs and consume it, but the configuration really comes back down to the end user about what's more important for how you want to set that up for optimizing the weightings about those different parameters. Good question.
Couple questions. We were just talking about that this morning, so as the board. But as far as the data storage and who owns the data, and obviously Esri doesn't, but each individual location, you brought up different locations and various countries and cities. I am assuming they own the data, they create it, and they have on their files and resources. Is that correct?
Yes. So example of the map of Australia is there's dozens of power companies that own the data, and they serve it up to the body, which is in that case the Dull Before You Dig. So they host the map, the actual public facing map, but the utility is providing what we call a feature service of their data into that, and they work on how frequently they need to be keeping that. And some of them are almost real time, others are every 3 months. There's a disclosure at the front that says this data is as good as, this sort of the date frame that they serve it up. But effectively, yeah, the utility owns the data and they're serving it up to a portal or to somebody else, a hub site, which is then a public facing domain. So that model has been what we've been seeing between a lot of governments and utilities as they need to share data and make decisions based upon what everybody's doing, rather than I own the data and I can't share it with you. And this is just a way of helping people make decisions faster.
Okay, and the second part of that is here in California, with your experience, who would be, and it could get information of municipalities and others that have their systems that we could start using as a guideline for recognizing the best, practices and things like that, that we as a board could, find out and, gain knowledge from. Who would you think of as some of those sources?
Of the best data that we're seeing, or the data providers, or?
I find, the county of Los Angeles, for instance, they have a really nice if you had some better ones and some target ones, we'd appreciate hearing, from Esri.
Yeah, look, the data sharing has become something we're seeing more and more of. And as I said, the more eyeballs that see data, the more feedback you get to improve your data. It is a pattern that we're seeing that, a lot of the data that we captured was, 10 and 20-year-old before they had this accuracy. And there is this iterative process where you need to improve it and get it right. It's one of those things. The systems now are making sure you can't put bad data into them, which is another big step forward. So a lot of the big utilities, due to the PSPS stuff, have started, sharing information. So a lot of those guys on the west coast of California here have moved into that model of data sharing for those particular events. And we're starting to see that collaboration being really effective, especially during things like the fires for LA. All that data was being provided. I didn't provide it today, but tracking where the wildfires are in real time, sharing where to get the evacuation roads, all that become a spatial problem to manage those events. But everybody was sharing their data during that event, so everybody had access to make those decisions faster. So in that case, we look at the East Coast here, PG&E, SCE, SMUD, all these guys are sharing information now more openly because of the way that you respond to those things like wildfires and PSPS.
Great, thank you.
Perfect.
Real quick, so you have a wealth of knowledge, international knowledge, and you've seen a lot of examples from, obviously we saw examples for larger companies, but say if you were a utility operator for maybe a city municipality that was smaller and doesn't have digital maps or great digital records, what would you do with a semi-limited budget what would your game plan be to map everything out? Like, is there anybody in a different country that's doing something really well? What are they leveraging? Any emerging tech with those constraints of budget and whatnot?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the big guys like the PG&Es, they have huge GIS departments, they have asset management, they have the technology. If you're a smaller municipality or a much smaller organization, how do you still leverage these capabilities, without the big teams and the big budgets and stuff like that? Is that right? Yep. Look, we actually have set this up. We have different markets, the big tier 1, tier 2s. I mean, they're going to have big enterprise systems. The smaller municipalities with smaller teams, I mean, you've got one person, which is the GIS manager, or the GIS, he is the department. He also is the asset manager, but he's also the guy that maybe has to go down the road and determine whether or not that air brake switch is open or closed. We do see all those different models. So we have what we call small systems solutions that you can just download as templates and take them out. So really this first step is accurate data. You can't manage what you can't understand. So you got to go capture it and visualize it first of all. But that doesn't mean you need to have the level of detail that some of these other people are, where you're mapping right down to terminals and into the different things. Just getting your system visualized so you can understand it. It helps you respond faster, mitigate the risk, build out the resiliency. They don't have to be big enterprise solutions. There's very lightweight apps that we provide to do that. So effectively, the solutions are available to download. You just configure it and go. You don't have to have a full, deployed enterprise system. Does that help?
Yeah.
Are there any additional in-person questions at this time? Are there any online questions?
I see no raised hands.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we are at noon. If there are no board members opposed, we will take our lunch break. I would like to note that there are 2 restaurants in the building, and by the registration area, we do have a list of nearby restaurants. I would also like to just remind everybody that we have had a schedule change. So our next presentation will be Digging Deeper, Investigations That Drive Change, and that will take place when we resume at 1:30. Thank you, Chair Johns. As a reminder, due to a schedule change, Esri presented before the break. The meeting recording will be available on our YouTube channel. Our next presentation is Digging Deeper, Investigations That Drive Change with Amy and Jeff from the Underground Safety Board. Amy is a supervising investigator with the board where she leads efforts to improve utility safety and regulatory compliance across California. With a career spanning physical security, operational management, investigations, and policy development, Amy brings expertise in excavation safety, damage prevention, and stakeholder education. Jeff is a senior policy investigator with the board where he leads efforts to investigate underground utility incidents and improve the safety of workers and the public of California. He has been with the board for 6 years, starting in 2019 within the board's policy division, and along the way played a role developing the board's safety standards, idea registration process, and education course. Prior to the presentation, I would like to invite the board to join us in the auditorium.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. The Investigations Division is excited to share an educational presentation this afternoon about digging deeper, investigations that drive change. My name is Amy Morford. I am the Northern California Supervising Investigator located out of the Sacramento office.
And I'm Jeff McClenahan, Senior Policy Investigator, also in the Northern California branch.
Today, Jeff and I will be covering our Investigations Division, the board's enforcement philosophy, 2 board initiatives in development are the 2025 work plan, which are the No 811 pilot program and an electronic positive response audit. Lastly, I will share the outcomes of 2 recent investigations and highlight the positive changes made by 2 companies to improve safety for their employees and the people who live and work in their communities. The Investigations Division is currently staffed with 11 team members. Our Chief of Investigations, Anona Bonner, a Northern California and a Southern California supervisor who oversees investigators. The Investigations Division investigates excavation damage and complaints throughout the state. The Investigations Division presents reports to the board quarterly, who determine whether a violation of the Dig Safe law has occurred. If a violation is found, the board determines sanctions and has the authority to refer cases to the Contractor State License Board, the Public Utilities Commission, the Office of the State Fire Marshal, and local municipal agencies such as city councils. The board, in exercising its statutory responsibility to enforce and recommend enforcement to other state agencies, does so pragmatically to improve the safety of excavations in the vicinity of subsurface installations. Board Policy B-05, item number 1. Given evidence of unintentional error and lack of evidence or willful noncompliance, the board's enforcement should focus on violators in correcting noncompliances. The effectiveness of an intervention method in prompting behavior change depends on the cause of the misbehavior. Most people and companies in regulated industries want to be safe and compliant with the law. For these individuals and companies, requiring corrective action, such as education, implementing procedures, improving procedures, or other measures, will be more effective in eliciting improvement versus financial penalties. Additionally, punishing unintentional errors can cause companies, and more importantly, people within those companies to refrain from sharing safety-related errors. Item number 2. Given the lack of evidence of unintentional error and evidence of reckless or willful noncompliance, the board should use fines as an enforcement tool. The effectiveness of an intervention method in affecting behavior change is dependent on the cause of the misbehavior. Directing an entity to correct intentional or reckless noncompliances will not elicit behavior change, but is instead more likely to create surface level compliance without addressing the underlying cause of the reckless or willful noncompliance. Repeated violations and failure to implement corrective actions may be indicators of reckless or willful noncompliance. In this case, monetary penalties are the board's most effective tool in creating compliance. Item number 3. Board investigative staff should develop procedures to actively limit the influence of liability in determining what accidents and complaints to investigate. The board's statutory mission is to oversee safety performance, not determine liability in accidents. A perception that the board can be a tool for parties to collect damages from each other would undermine trust in the board's interest and ability in pursuing its safety mission. Two important items of the board's 2025 work plan in the Investigations Division include the No 811 pilot program, which focuses on excavator compliance to obtain an 811 ticket prior to excavating. The second item is electronic positive response audits to encourage operator accountability and compliance under the law. So next up is our No 811 pilot program, and I'm going to give the floor over to Jeff, who is our team lead driving this program.
Right. Hi, everyone. Glad you're here. I'm going to take us over the state of and some early results from our No 811 pilot program.
The board has heard directly from utility operators that one of the biggest problems in California is excavation damages occurring without an 811 ticket. And the data confirms this. We'll talk about some of that. These types of damages represent a major safety risk, yet they often go unreported under the current system, as I think we've heard about from some other speakers in the last couple of days as well. To address this, the board created an elective reporting system so operators can notify us when an excavator damages their line without a ticket. These reports trigger an immediate investigation and ensure accountability and swift follow-up. This is California's #1 excavation damage problem, and the board is dedicating resources through this pilot to reduce damages and improve public safety. The goal of the No 811 or No Ticket program is to provide utility operators, again, a voluntary channel to report no ticket underground facility damages to the board for investigation and to reduce those no ticket damages in California. Statute and regulation currently require excavators to report excavation damages to the board. However, there's no incentive for a company already out of compliance with the DigSafe Act to report these damages to us. With this pilot program, the board will be able to address a potentially major source of underground facility damages, which I'll talk more about. This is in a pilot phase, and we will continue to develop this program. The most important part of the pilot is collecting information regarding the incident that occurred so that the board can understand the factors involved in these damages and work to prevent them in the future. For notifications in this program, the board is looking to collect the following baseline information for inclusion in the program and allow our investigators to act quickly and get these investigations in front of the board. First, we need a provable underground facility damage, such as a photo of a damaged utility that is under the ground, moved earth, a hole in the ground. This damaged underground utility proves that excavation occurred, and we know that that happened at a distinct point in time. Second, which is maybe self-explanatory, but not always the case, is that these cases must involve a lack of a ticket at the time of that excavation work. And that is that the utility operator was not notified of the excavation. Investigators corroborate that fact with a ticket search with the regional notification centers. Third, the investigation requires proof of the excavation company on site, such as a company vehicle, a business card, or identifiable company insignias. And with this evidence, the investigation can demonstrate the involvement of that company or companies that were there at that time. Fourth, participating operators report the contact information for that excavation company and for the reporting company for use in online surveys that we can quickly get out to them on the excavator side and on the operator side so that we can potentially follow up and address any additional questions if those arise. The pilot program has 3 primary objectives. First, the board wants to understand and reduce these no 811 damages. And we don't know if these aren't reported to us. And so that's why we're creating this voluntary channel. No ticket damages are a priority for board enforcement. And so second, the board aims to investigate 100% of these damage notifications and make that a priority. Third, the board is working towards launching the pilot statewide to address no ticket damages across the state. All right, a brief history of the program. So phase 1 of the pilot started in fall of 2023 when we partnered with Southern California Gas Company and kicked off the program. So thanks to Southern California Gas Company for starting the program with us. In this phase, staff built the initial intake process. We built a survey to collect information. And our first surveys allowed for photographs, basic incident details, and contact information for the reporting company. In phase 2 of the pilot, we welcomed San Diego Gas and Electric. And we welcome their perspective and continue to grow the program. So thanks again to SCG&E for joining us in the mission of reducing and maybe someday eliminating these no ticket damages. Phase 2 started in July of 2024 with an updated intake process to collect additional information, additional reporting questions, the ability to intake more types of documents, and we began integrating that with our existing case management system. At this stage, staff also developed a process for the excavation surveys and to submit information regarding the incident through a similar reporting survey. Now let's take a look at some of the data we have with the program. Phase 1 of the pilot saw a total of 76 notifications submitted by SoCal Gas alone. And again, that was from the fall to the winter of 2023 to 2024. And we so far surpassed that by far in phase 2. In phase 2, the pilot has received 285 notifications so far. And these notifications have led to 161 open investigations and 23 that we've put before the board where we have decisions on notices of probable violation resulting specifically from these No 811 pilot cases. And these cases are starting to accelerate in hitting the board. And the investigations team aims to have these cases before the board at every board enforcement meeting. You can see in 2024, we had our first 4 cases decided by the board. And so far in 2025, the board has made 19 determinations. And we still have one more meeting this year in November coming up, as I think you've heard earlier. And with that, financial penalties are starting to scale up as more of these investigations go before our board, with over $38,000 in fines referred to the Contractor State License Board this year. Additionally, the board recommended in each one of these violations, all 23, that each company take the board's education course as an additional corrective action. Let's look at some statistics on No 811 damages in the state as far as we know it. The Common Ground Alliance Association collects data on damages from participating member excavators and operators. CGA has contributors identify the one root cause of the damage, and this number informs the board's understanding of the extent of No 811 damages across the state. So in 2022, CGA members identified the root cause as what they call no notification damages, which amounted to 34% in that year, and a similar number in 2023 at nearly 38% of the damages reported through that program being identified as no ticket damages. Based on that, these no ticket damages may make up one of the largest categories of excavation damages in the state and potentially across the nation, since this is a national program. All right, in comparison, the board receives few of these notifications, which is why we are building the No 811 pilot program to create this channel of understanding so that we learn about the damages in California, and then we can take the policy responses and enforcement actions necessary to reduce these damages in the state. Comparing the reporting of damages across here, our state, for instance, shows that the board is hearing about few of these damages at all. In 2023, CGA reported reports of about 8,000 damages, and the combined regional notification center damage tickets for reporting damages directly to the call centers between USA North, 811, and Dig Alert was about 5,100 reports in 2023. That year, by contrast, the board received reports of about 1,200 damages, and that's only 23% of what the regional notification centers heard of, and just 15% of that CGA total. Now let's take a brief look at examples of information that is provided by operators and excavators through our pilot program. First, again, we need a demonstrable photo that shows what happened. So we need a company and a damage that occurred. So on the left, you can see photos of an excavation damage. We have a hole in the ground, a yellow plastic facility. You've probably seen a lot of photos of. And likewise, we need to know what company was on site. So on the right, we have an excavation company with their logo on some equipment here to demonstrate that this company was there when this excavation occurred, and we can clearly identify them. Here are some examples of information that operators provide regarding excavation damage to an underground facility, and that we collect through our initial intake survey system. Operators provide the reporter, first of all, the person reporting that damage, and their company contact information in case our investigators have additional follow-up questions. The basic incident details are reported to us, including the date and location, the description of the excavation, and facility details such as the material and size of the damaged underground facility. Operators provide information on the excavator companies that were observed on site, for instance, to see if there were multiple companies potentially involved, along with any contact information that they collected. Operators provide emergency details, such as if there was a fire, an evacuation, or an injury, and they confirm the time that the facility repairs were completed to corroborate that damage. Operators also provide photos and include additional information, such as who took the photos and a description, so that our investigators are not interpreting that photograph. I mentioned that we have a reporting survey for the excavator side as well. So here's some information that we collect from the other side. So we send this out to excavators following receiving that email. And we confirm, first of all, their basic details of the business. We want to know their contractor state license, board license, and their business address. The excavator reports information on what occurred in that incident, such as the events that led up to the damage, if they were aware of a USA ticket, and confirmation they were actually working that job site. Excavators provide information about other excavation companies on site as well, such as if they were working as a prime or subcontractor role, and whether they delineated that work area, and provide details such as the type of that project and the equipment involved in the damage. Excavators provide documentation as well, such as photos, policies, and procedures, and contracting documents, which the board may use as the basis of a corrective action, such as to update policies and procedures, to include compliant excavation procedures like notifying the regional notification center prior to excavation and getting that ticket. Additionally, excavators provide reasoning like why the excavation company did not call in a ticket, if they report that they didn't, and that we ask them what steps they will take in the future to prevent these damages from happening again. So we're beginning to collect this information about these reasons why excavation companies say they were working without a ticket. So this is data that the program will have to follow over time and see if there are any trends. But here's kind of a snapshot of some reasons, and some of these we've heard before in other talks these last couple of days. First thing we hear a lot, and we've heard in other cases, is that the excavator maintains they weren't excavating. For instance, they were only finish grading or not trenching. Secondly, excavators have said that they're only doing shallow excavation, such as it's under a foot and a half, or 2 feet, and so it doesn't count. Something else we hear is that the excavation company may have only been hand digging at the time of the damage. And we've heard that with landscaping cases particularly, but not exclusively. For some excavator responses said that they were only excavating in a backyard and so didn't need a ticket, or that they were near a street, or what they thought was, out of the public right of way. Some excavators have said that the utilities were expected to be deeper or were not installed to a certain standard that they assumed would apply. And in many of these pilot cases, a prime contractor or a subcontractor, if they're involved, then one of those parties might assume that the other party would call in that ticket and it was already taken care of. We've also heard that the site was previously marked, or that they thought they knew where the utilities were already. And we've also heard that the crew was simply directed to proceed or was doing short notice work and so didn't get a ticket. Now let's talk about some investigation outcomes and a couple specific cases that the board has already decided out of the pilot. This first case was in National City, California. The case was reported by SoCalGas, and without their notice, this incident wouldn't have gone uninvestigated. A backhoe hit a plastic gas main and caused an ignition. It was the early morning, and FK Design and Construction was trenching to repair a water line when the damage occurred. National City Fire Department sent a 3-engine response, and the resulting fire destroyed FK Design and Construction's Bobcat and some of their other tools. And luckily, no one was injured. After damaging the line, FK Design and Construction called 911, and that response evacuated and cordoned off the area. But when they arrived with those 3 engines, gas was leaking from the line, and before San Diego Gas and Electric could stop the flow of gas, FK Design and Construction's diesel generator, which was powering the lights on site, ignited the gas. Here's a photo of that fire in the early morning hours. Following a notice of probable violation, FK Design contested in writing that the area had been previously marked and stated that the facility was installed with improper clearance from the water facility they were repairing. Both reasons reported in the pilot program already. In their response, FK Design stated that following the incident, they had strengthened their internal procedures, and that as a small business, they had absorbed the loss of equipment and paid for the loss of natural gas. The board heard this case in July of this year and determined that there was a violation of 4216.2b, excavating without notifying the regional notification center. The board recommended to the contractor state license board an $8,000 financial penalty and mandatory participation in the board's education course as an additional corrective action. Another type of case we're seeing in the pilot program are facility damages involved with the construction of ADUs or accessory dwelling units. This second case is in Rialto, California. The contractor Arm Construction hit a natural gas service line with a shovel while trenching to install the water, gas, electric, and communication facilities into this outbuilding. and they did not have a USA ticket. In this case, they hit the natural gas line going into the neighboring property in the yard. The armed supervisor admitted that they didn't have a ticket for the backyard, that obtaining tickets for backyard work was not their usual practice, that an employee was digging a trench and was cutting through tree roots with a shovel when the employee cut about halfway through a natural gas line. They did not call 911. They contacted DigAlert after damaging the line, and DigAlert provided that ticket to them. They also called Southern California Gas Company to report the damage. Here's a quick photo of that line going through the yard. The NOPB charged Armed Construction with failing to notify the Regional Notification Center prior to excavation and failing to call 911 emergency services after causing damage to a natural gas facility. The board determined this case in July of this year and found Armed Construction in violation of both Government Code 4216.2B and C2 and recommends to the Contractor State License Board a $1,000 financial penalty and the board's education course again as an additional corrective action. So our program is looking for additional participants to begin scaling up the pilot and moving in the direction of opening statewide. If your company is interested in joining the pilot, reach out to us soon at the email on the screen at digboard@energysafety.ca.gov and let us know. We'll add an additional utility operator later this year and plan to scale up the program prior to going fully public. All right, so thank you all for joining me on this tour of the pilot. And now I will hand this over to Amy to discuss our electronic positive response audit and some additional investigation outcomes.
Electronic positive response audits is a new project the Investigations Division will be implementing before the end of this year. The purpose of EPR audits is to evaluate whether utility operators are meeting their legal responsibilities required by Government Code 4216.3 C1A. The code states utility operators must respond to excavation notifications through the Regional Notification Center and, if necessary, field mark the area prior to legal start time. The Investigations Division will be conducting scheduled EPR audits to support safety and regulatory compliance across California's underground utility industry. The Investigation Division's EPR audit goals include to ensure and improve legal compliance. Regular audits will confirm if operators are fulfilling their EPR obligations. The Investigation Division's next goal is to enforce the regulatory obligations of operators, which are required by law. Regular audits will identify patterns of non-response or incomplete notifications. The investigation team will investigate operators who fail to respond, and notices of probable violations will be issued and presented to the board. Lastly, the Investigation Division and the board want to improve communication between excavators and operators. Miscommunication can lead to safety incidents, project delays, and costly mistakes. Operators may fail to complete electronic positive responses due to the following reasons. All right, time constraints. High workload or limited staffing can lead to the failure to complete EPRs. Lack of awareness or training. Some operators do not understand 8.1 regulations, the EPR process, or their legal obligations. Internal process gaps. Inconsistent procedures, the lack of procedures, or the lack of accountability for completing EPRs. Perception of low priority. Electronic positive responses may be seen as administrative rather than an obligation to safety and compliance. The failure to update the Regional Notification Center. The EPR contact listed with the Regional Notification Center is no longer with the organization or in the role. Subsurface installations have been sold or transferred, but the Regional Notification Center is not aware of this change. These last two examples mean EPR notifications are going to someone somewhere, but no action is being taken. If you are an operator of a subsurface utility, it is your responsibility to ensure that your shapefile or files and contact information is kept up to date with the regional notification centers. All right, next, let's look at a couple of recent investigations that have driven change. First up is Posture Real Estate Brokerage, Inc. On July 10th, 2024, a Kinder Morgan line rider discovered a 6-foot by 8-foot advertisement billboard in Tracy, California. The billboard was located 8 feet from Kinder Morgan's high-pressure pipeline. This investigation determined Posture Real Estate paid and supervised 2 unlicensed laborers to install the billboard, which required digging holes with shovels to set the sign in concrete. Posture Real Estate did not notify the Regional Notification Center before digging and installing the billboard. The picture on the left is a good view of the sign and provides a good visual of its size. The picture on the right shows the billboard in the background, but if you focus on the right-hand side of the photo, you will notice a post with a side view of a circular sign. This is a Kinder Morgan sign designating they have a pipeline underground. And for those of you paying attention yesterday, we actually had a good clear shot of one of these signs that Mr. Sneed presented in his presentation with Kinder Morgan. All right, the outcome of this investigation was a notice of probable violation charging Posture Real Estate Brokerage, Inc. with Government Code 4216.2B, excavating without first notifying the Regional Notification Center. The board determined this case in April of 2025 and found Posture Real Estate Brokerage, Inc. in violation of Government Code 4216.2. The board referred this case to the Contractor State License Board and mandated corrective actions to include the completion of the board's education course and written procedures for billboard installation that require excavation, including timely notification to the Regional Notification Center, submitted within 30 days of the decision. The results of the board's corrective actions included Posture Real Estate's enrollment in our October education course and a timely submission of a billboard installation involving excavation standard operating procedure. The procedure applies to all Posture Real Estate, Inc. brokerage staff, contractors, or third parties engaged in activities involving excavation for billboard or sign installation. The procedure includes the following items: pre-installation planning, which will identify the location of the proposed billboard or signage installation and determine if the installation will involve digging, drilling, or trenching. 811 notification. Posture Real Estate will notify the Regional Notification Center and obtain a ticket at a minimum of 2 working days, excluding the day of notification, prior to a planned billboard or signage installation that involves digging, drilling, or trenching. Posture Real Estate will obtain and verify the dig ticket, and excavation will not begin until all utilities have been marked or confirmed as clear. Contractor oversight includes using licensed and insured contractors for billboard installations, and contractors will be required to follow this procedure and provide a copy of an 811 ticket prior to digging. Documentation and record keeping. This includes retaining 811 tickets, site maps, and utility markings, and contractor agreements and licenses for a minimum of 3 years. Lastly, staff or contractors who fail to follow the procedure will be subject to disciplinary action and/or termination of contract. The next case is Phase 3 Communications, Inc. On May 22nd, 2024, a Silicon Valley Power employee noticed Phase 3 Communications, Inc. using a bobcat and shovels to dig near Silicon Valley Power's 12-inch natural gas pipeline in Santa Clara, California. The Silicon Valley Power employee contacted Phase 3 and requested proof of their 811 ticket. Phase 3 Communications had an expired ticket for work performed at that exact location months prior. Silicon Valley Power requested Phase 3 Communications stop work immediately and obtain a valid 811 ticket. Phase 3 Communications shut down the job and left without incident. The investigation could not determine why Phase 3 was working without a ticket due to their lack of cooperation with the investigation. The outcome of this investigation was a notice of probable violation charging Phase 3 Communications, Inc. with Government Code 4216.2B, excavating without first notifying the Regional Notification Center, and California Code Regulations Title 19, Section 4151C, failure to cooperate with the investigation. The board determined this case in July of 2025 and found Phase 3 Communications, Inc. in violation of both Government Code 4216.2B and California Code Regulations Title 19, Section 4151C. The board referred this case to the Contractor State License Board and mandated a corrective action to include the completion of the board's education course and issued a $1,000 financial penalty. When Phase 3 received the notice of probable violation, now they were ready to talk to the investigations unit. They took the notification seriously and proactively enrolled over 10 employees in the board's education course. They also submitted documentation of corrective actions administered to prevent future incidents from occurring. So let's go ahead and take a look at the corrective measures Phase 3 implemented. Phase 3 completed an internal audit of its procedures and an investigation into the incident. Phase 3 created a company-wide database for tracking USA tickets. Phase 3 created procedures for USA tickets for restoration projects. Phase 3 conducted excavation safety training for managers, supervisors, and other personnel. Phase 3 project managers will initiate USA ticket requests after verifying delineations. Phase 3 employees will document delineated areas. Phase 3 created a USA ticket coordinator position to track USA tickets along with designating secondary backup contacts. Phase 3 project leads will maintain digital and physical copies of USA tickets and discuss in daily tailgate meetings. And lastly, the Phase 3 safety manager will ensure employees take the board's education course along with USA North 811 excavator safety training, OSHA training, and IS network training. On behalf of the Underground Investigations Division and Jeff, on behalf of the Underground, what's going on? All right. On behalf of the Underground Investigations Division, Jeff and I hope this overview provides insight into the board's 2025 goals and the board's commitment to investigations that drive change. If there are any questions, Jeff and I would be happy to answer.
Hi, James Wingate, USA North 811. I love the increase in investigations compared to previous years as you guys have really ramped up staffing and procedures and how to get that going. That's awesome. I wonder, do we have any metrics about the fines recommended to other agencies? Like we recommended $38,000 worth of fines to Contractor State License Board. Did they accept the investigations and issue those fines? I mean, how do we know? And I don't mean this to sound critical, but we want enforcement to be effective, right? And if we have 5 different agencies in California that are doing this, then we have to have everyone on the respecting each other's and not redoing the investigation a second time at taxpayer expense and things like that. So I'm just wondering if we have any feedback coming from those other agencies about what you send their way. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Yeah, I don't have anything to report today, but that is a very good point that we could report out to the board and to the public of what we're hearing back. We're definitely tracking the investigations that we refer over to our partner agencies, and there are some that are, within the board's jurisdiction as well that we've issued corrective actions for. But I don't have anything to report today on that, but that would be good for us to report out. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and I'm in Diggler. On the statistic that you showed about the Underground Safety Board damages being like 1,500 compared to the 5,000 from the centers, are those just the ones that are reported directly to you guys that are the high priority, the gas leaks, the fatalities, the injury? And if a damage ticket is done, that's one, but there could be 2 types of damages on it, like an electric and communications, let's say. And so in the dirt report, it could be listed as 2, whereas the centers are only reporting it as 1. Thank you.
Yeah, so I believe the question, so we had, I think there's been 5,000 damage tickets, I think in the year 2023 reported to the combined regional notification centers at DigAlert and USA North 811. And that year, I think we had roughly 1,200 damages reported directly to us. And yes, those are damages reported directly to us. We are working to build up our ticket management system and looking to quantify and intake the damage tickets that are reported out to you all. We are working to develop that system out. And so that's good to know that you're reporting that as 1 damage. And so we'll have to take a look at how that's quantified and make sure that we are keeping tabs on, the correct number of damages. But yeah, those are directly reported to us, and we'll have to figure out how to integrate the damages reported directly to the call centers versus reported to us. Yeah.
Marshall Johnson, USB board. My question is related to the EPR trial. Does that include not just no EPR, but does that include late EPR notifications?
What was the last part of that question? Including the what?
Late EPR notifications.
Our goal is we're just getting the audits up and running, so our goal is to expand it as we go. So we will be looking at no EPRs, and we will also be looking at operators who are late.
Just to add on specifically, the first go around with the audits will be focusing on no EPR response or entities that are responding 50% or less of the time in the tickets that we pull. As we grow the EPR audit, we will be looking at the quality of the EPR response and the timeliness of it.
Are there any additional in-person comments? Are there any online comments?
There are no online comments.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Amy and Jess. Today's final presentation. Here we go. Today's final presentation is Building a Safer Community, SMUD's approach to enhanced communication from Ryder Couch. Ryder, who holds a chemical engineering degree from Vanderbilt University, brings over 25 years of experience in regulatory compliance to his role at SMUD. Before joining SMUD in 2014, he spent 15 years in the private sector. At SMUD, he has worked in environmental compliance, overseen natural gas plants, and now manages regulatory compliance for the entire power generation division.
Can everyone hear me? That's a yes. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Let's see here.
Use the arrows, please.
Huh?
Look on the advancer, use the arrows. Use the arrows here.
Oh, of
not
course.
the-
Yes. Okay, right on. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to talk to you all about something that's critically important today, community safety. And at SMUD, we've had a recent improvement that we wanted to share as our natural gas pipeline. So at SMUD, safety isn't just a priority, it's paramount. And what we do, one of the best ways to keep your community safe is keep them well informed and educated. And the way we're doing that is our public awareness program. Our public awareness program isn't just a SMUD best practice, it's also a federal requirement. So historically, we've communicated with our community through flyers, community meetings, informational sessions, and these have all been good, but we've also wondered, hey, how can we be better? How can we get more specific and interact with the people who are directly interacting with our natural gas pipeline? And from that, where our improvement is, we started to use geofencing. And this way we can get targeted messaging directly to the people who are interacting with our gas pipeline. That way we're getting the right message to the right people at the right time. So what is geofencing? So geofencing is something where you set up a virtual perimeter around a geographic location. And then as devices go in and out, so think device, think probably your cell phone, goes in or out of that perimeter, it's going to trigger. It's going to send a notification out. And then what you're going to see is in our case, it's going to be a safety notification. We're going to be informing the public through ads. I would like to make a point that we are not sending emails. We are not texting people. We're not spamming people. This is when they go in their normal day-to-day and they're searching a website or whatever. These will be where these targeted ads, and in our case, not ads that you don't want, but maybe safety, something that's improving the safety of our groups. So that's what geofencing is. Here's kind of some examples of how you would interact with it, the ads that would come in. And you'll see that mostly it's going to change to your screen format. So you might be on a cell phone, you might be on a pad, you might be on a laptop. It's automatically going to adjust to the size of that screen. And then it's also going to optimize the interactions so that you can get the most engagement of that person with safety for the gas pipeline. So earlier I said something about the right message at the right time, at the right people. In this, we've got people living adjacent to SMUD gas transmission pipeline route. So I would like to point out, this is not, we would never go around as individual person's house. There's privacy concerns. I think what we use is a perimeter. So say, for example, maybe we go a half a mile on each side of the gas pipeline. And any community that falls within that, that's who would be in this geofencing thing. So we'll have people that are living there. Then we also have places where people assemble and work on a regular basis. Maybe that's a school, maybe that's a congregation, a religious community. We also have emergency and public officials in the areas. We want our first responders to get these same messaging. We also want our public officials to be aware of the gas pipeline there so they can be informed in their community meetings. Also, we have excavators where SMUD's gas pipeline operates. This is critically important. We want to have every excavator that even would interact in the Sacramento area out through YOLO where our gas pipeline goes to have this same information and to be educated on safety. So we're at the results. So let's look at this. These are some kind of big numbers. So what we did is our first one was October through the end of December. And you'll see we have 3.5 million ads total. Ads appeared 39,500 times a day and clicked 6,000 times total, about 67 clicks a day. But then you're going to look at this and you're like, wait a minute, that's only 1,000 people saw our ad. About 2 people clicked on it out of 1,000. That doesn't really feel like, okay, we're making a big impact. That was our initial impression too, until we went and looked at our data. We looked at our 2023 versus 2024 data, pretty much pre and post the geofencing campaign. And this is kind of where the magic kicks in. So we saw a 200,000 increase in active users. That's not just impressions, that's real people engaging with our content. We saw an average engagement time shot up by 45%. So that means while they're on the site, how long are they staying there? So that increased 45%. And the number of events, those things where like people are clicking on drop downs and looking around, that increased by 235%. And then we also saw that like when people were interacting with it, people were on different languages, whereas 7 different languages that were interacting with our website going across. So what's the main takeaway from all this? Like, so we increased the interactions. Main takeaway is we're interacting with the people that are actually right there where our gas pipeline is, informing them on the safety and therefore improving the safety of our community. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Matt Dodd with USA North 811. I'm curious about what services you implemented the ads through. Was it Google Ads, Facebook, any of the social media sites? What do you primarily spend your ad dollars on?
Yes, and. If you go back here, you can see some of the stuff that are going on. YouTube, it says Gmail, but we're not actually sending mail out. So that might be like when you hop on Gmail and there's ads there. It's going to pop up. Just most normal web surfing. Anybody else have any questions? Okay.
Are there any online questions?
There are no public comments.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you again to all of today's and yesterday's attendees, speakers, and exhibitors. I would now like to invite the board to return to the dais for closing remarks.
Okay, we will now proceed with closing remarks. Would any member like to provide a closing remark?
Yeah, Member Clausen, I just want to thank everybody that did get up here and present. It's sharing this information that we have out there and including the exhibitors we had outside. That sharing of information is the only way we can get better. So as we move forward and there's more events, I encourage more people to participate and to share. And through that, we will develop better safety, better ideas, and maybe help move this a little faster going forward. Thank you.
Member Munoz, now that everyone has seen how to properly put their ideas into the idea registry, you may go home today and have some ideas. I really hope that you click in there and put all your ideas in the idea registry, because as we had reported last time, there wasn't very many in a while. So now you could just go ahead and fill that out. So thank you for the training on how to use the website.
Okay, so seeing no further comments, we'll proceed. So the next board meeting will be on November 17 through 18, which will include a review of the public comments submitted to the board on the draft GIS regulatory language. And we look forward to seeing you all there. So if no other board members object, we will adjourn this meeting. So I don't have a gavel, but pretend I do. We're now adjourned. Thank you again for all the for your attendance and this just making this into a great event.